Hello all. I wanted to offer up a quick clarification that I feel is important to keep in mind before I talk about this movie. Some of you seem to have gotten it in your heads that I dislike or even hate Disney's version of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. This is not the case. I like Disney's version of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I will happily watch it and be very, very entertained by it. The purpose of making my video essay on The Hunchback of Notre Dame is not to demonstrate that I do not like it. I think I'm pretty darn capable of demonstrating very clearly when I don't like something. My purpose in making that video is to establish the fact that I think the movie has some very deep-seated flaws that unfortunately keep it from being the best version of itself that it could possibly be. But flawed is not the same thing as bad. I feel it's important to clarify this because I want you to understand going into this review that although I do like Disney's version of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, I do not see it as something perfect or sacrosanct that the sequel is only here to ruin. Does that make sense? Okay, good. On to the review. Warm greetings, Code Monkeys, and welcome back to CodedLockFilms. The time has at long last come to dive into another episode of Disney Direct DVDs.
Disney, oh Disney, you shaped most of my childhood, yes you mean a lot to me.
Yep, we have at long last arrived at The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2, and by now, I think you all should be pretty familiar with my opinions on the first movie. If you haven't seen my video talking about the original film, you might want to check out the link in the video description to get yourself a little bit of context. I think the video is worth watching because I find Disney's Hunchback to be one of their most academically interesting movies in a critical sense, partially because it takes so much of itself so seriously and projects this sense of immense grandiosity. Its sequel, The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2, by contrast, is much lighter, leaner, and overall lower on stakes. It primarily concerns Quasimodo getting himself a love interest, or at least, it sort of does. You'll see what I mean. Popular opinion tells us that this is one of the most brain-scrapingly awful direct-to-video Disney sequels ever made. But does it live up to the anti-hype? Well, let's find out. Please join me as we shine heaven's light on The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2.
Code Monkey, get up, get coffee. Code Monkey, go to job. Code Monkey, have boring meeting with boring manager Rob. Rob say Code Monkey very diligent, but his output stink. His code not functional or elegant. What do Code Monkey think? Code Monkey think maybe manager wanna write goddamn login page himself. Code Monkey not say it out loud. Code Monkey not crazy, just proud. Code Monkey like Fritos. Code Monkey like Tab and Mountain Dew. Code Monkey, very simple man with big, warm, fuzzy secret heart. Code Monkey like you. Code Monkey like you.
So much like the first movie, we start off with a prologue, and honestly, it's not bad. Yeah, the population of Paris seems to have been reduced to like 50 people at the most, but hey, even animated extras gotta get paid, people. No, seriously, animating crowds is actually really difficult and expensive. And the song, well, it certainly doesn't compare to the original's prologue, but it's not bad at all. It's definitely light years ahead of the music in any other direct-to-video Disney sequel, and taken entirely on its own merits, it's actually, dare I say it, good. I'm honestly at a loss for words here. The festival this time around concerns Le Jour d'Amour, a thinly veiled version of Valentine's Day, which is a little weird since Valentine's Day became associated with romantic love in the 14th century, and The Hunchback of Notre Dame is set in the late Middle Ages, which comprised the 14th and 15th centuries. I mean, if the holiday you're alluding to wouldn't have been an anachronism, then why not just use the actual holiday instead of making one up for no reason? Anyway, the big tradition here is that on the day in question, everybody celebrates this holiday by yelling about how much they love their significant other, while Quasimodo rings this bell called La Fidèle, which has had its interior surface gilded and encrusted with jewels.
Excuse me?
What? Is there some kind of problem?
How exactly is he supposed to ring a bell that's had its interior surface gilded and encrusted with jewels?
I assume that causes issues, then?
Causes issues? Do you have any idea how precisely honed an instrument like a bell is? The degree to which mounting a bunch of jewels inside of it would destroy its ability to properly resonate.
Dude, trust me. It's small potatoes, okay?
Small potato. The damn thing doesn't even have a clapper on it.
Oh, that's just bad continuity. It has one again in a few seconds. See? Look, clapper.
Ugh, why do I bother?
Anyway, Quasimodo now seems to be more or less okay with going outside and reasonably well adjusted about the whole appearance thing. Which, yeah, I'd like if we could have seen him grappling with that a little bit more instead of it just being off screen, but I guess it works okay. It has been years since the last movie, after all. Unfortunately, Quasimodo's also taken to hanging out with this kid.
Zephyr, you need to slow down.
Okay, Mom.
Oh god, this kid. This is Zephyr, Phoebus and Esmeralda's son, and he is just the worst. I don't know what it is about the movie business when it comes to writing little kid characters, but no child I have ever met in my life is this annoying. And not only do I work with children for a living, my mom ran a daycare in her house until I was 17 years old. So I know what I'm talking about. Anyway, on to that festival. Arriving as part of the festival's, festivities is the Cirque du Soleil run by this guy. Yes, this is an exceptionally transparent villain setup, but honestly, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It's not like the movie attempts to hide it from us, and hell, Disney villains are never exactly subtle.
I win.
Sarouche here has an assistant named Madeline, played by Jennifer Love Hewitt of all people. The movie tries to endear her to us by showing us that she's clumsy, and that makes her relatable, I guess. I think that's what they're going for anyway, but not only is the movie acting under the rather flimsy assumption that clumsiness is an instantly charming character trait, which I don't necessarily buy, it doesn't even make the case that she's clumsy terribly well. All they ever show us to support this assertion is that she can hardly stay upright on a tightrope, but I mean, well, she's doing a hell of a lot better than I could.
I was thinking.
Thinking? Not your strong suit, is it, my little bonbon? No, it's mine. And where would you be without me?
On the streets.
Precisely.
Okay, I see what they're going for here, trying to make the dynamic between Sarouche and Madeline into kind of a parallel to the dynamic between Quasimodo and Frollo. You know, one keeps the other cloistered and controlled via the means of psychological abuse and conditioning. This is, however, kneecapped by three basic problems. The first being that Quasimodo suffered from actual deformity and disability, and thus had a plausible reason for being afraid of how society at large would react to him. Madeline has no such impediment. The second being that Quasimodo was actually kept isolated and by all accounts had contact only with Frollo. Madeline, being a magician's assistant in a traveling circus, has regular contact with the outside world and can quite easily refute Sarouche's assertions that she would have no place in the world by, you know, just looking around. And the third being that, well, inviting comparisons between Frollo and Sarouche is a bit like inviting comparisons between the birds and Birdemic.
I could kiss me.
Anyhow, Sarouche here, in addition to being head of the circus, is also a thief, and thinks that stealing La Fidèle could be his ticket to retirement. To that end, he decides to send Madeline to meet Quasimodo and get in his good graces in order to find out exactly where in the tower La Fidèle is kept. Which seems a little unnecessary to me. I mean, according to Wikipedia, there are only 10 bells in the Notre Dame Cathedral, and as far as I can tell, the greatest number ever present at one time was 14. How long does it take to check 14 bells to see which one has a bunch of gold and jewels on the inside? So Madeline goes up to the tower to find Quasimodo, and he hides from her initially.
Are you hiding from me?
No. What's so funny?
Nothing. It's just, it looks like you're wearing a really big hat. Oh, that sounds silly, doesn't it?
No. I just never looked at it that way before.
Yes, it's a brass beret. A 2-ton topper.
A chapeau in C sharp.
Okay, so this is super cringy. Obviously, I mean, you heard it, right? but it also makes a weird kind of sense. I mean, when would these two have ever flirted before? By that I mean, when would they have ever flirted with anyone, rather than would they have ever flirted with each other? You know what I mean. And developmentally speaking, doesn't it kind of make sense that they would both have a more simple, childlike sense of what is and isn't funny? But even so, I gotta say, it's still not engaging, even if it is logical. If it comes down to what makes logical sense in a movie versus what emotionally engages me, I'll take the latter every single time. This dynamic is meant to be lighthearted and charming, but it's just really awkward and not funny, and I kinda just want to move on to something else. So I'm just gonna say that she sees his face and runs away, and then Quasimodo sings a surprisingly optimistic song that actually works pretty well for what it is.
Imagine someone to love who loves you. Imagine to look in her eyes and see.
But honestly, I'm more or less convinced that Tom Holtze could sing the ingredients off of a box of breakfast cereal and make it sound compelling and beautiful, so I don't know if it's just that making the song work for me, but either way, the gargoyles convince Quasimodo to go to the circus and make an impression on Madeline.
Zephyr, stay close. I don't want to lose you. I don't trust these people.
What does that mean?
Well, just look at them. I mean, they travel from town to town like. Yes. No. I mean, I can't. So, Quasi,
Okay, so that's obviously a big yikes, because all of a sudden we've got Phoebus being prejudiced towards the exact same type of person as his wife. This is a potentially interesting dynamic, but unfortunately, the movie really undercuts itself when it comes to this subplot. You'll see what I mean. Sarouche begins to put on his show for the masses.
Messieurs, dames, boys and girls, voila! A treat for your senses!
Oh, okay. So Sarouche is using actual magic. I must admit, I did not see that coming. I mean, he's gotta be using real magic, right? There can't possibly be another explanation, can there? You can't fake that. And while he's putting on his magic acts, he has his carnies stealing money and valuables from the crowd. Keep that in mind because it's gonna be important a bit later. Oh, and Zephyr and Quasimodo sing a song, but I'm gonna spare you that one. Call it a gift. As Quasimodo and Madeline banter back and forth a bit more and decide to walk around Paris together, Phoebus is dealing with an angry crowd of people who have all been robbed. Being of reasonable intellect, Phoebus jumps to the logical conclusion.
wait a minute. The string of robberies begins the moment the circus comes to town. Coincidence? I don't think so.
So, here's the problem with this subplot. The movie sets up that beat where Phoebus is prejudicially distrustful towards the circus folk, right? And the implication at that moment is that he's supposed to be wrong to think this way, and he's gonna have to go through some character development to unlearn what he has learned societally. But the problem is, he's entirely correct. He's right to assume they're up to no good because he has some pretty compelling circumstantial evidence that they're up to no good, and lo and behold, they are up to no good. So this sequel takes this character, rewrites him to have a prejudice he never had in the first movie, and then immediately justifies said prejudice. What the hell, Disney? What kind of message is that supposed to communicate? And I know this is skipping ahead a little, but later in the movie, when Phoebus is investigating the circus, it puts a wedge between him and Esmeralda because she's angry about his willingness to assume it was the circus folk, which she's right to be angry about, except that Phoebus is correct, and once he's revealed to be correct, his prejudice goes entirely unexamined by the narrative. I really don't know how you screw up a subplot this basic this badly. And it would be so easy to fix this. Just take out the parts where Phoebus demonstrates prejudice. Get rid of that and have it just be about him making logical deductions based on the available evidence and being demonized for it. Have him be accused of prejudice without that prejudice actually being there, and this part of the movie gets way, way better. Now, you may be wondering why I'm spending this much time on a subplot, and the answer is very simple. The main plot is just really, really boring, And the dynamic between Quasimodo and Madeline is so repetitive that I basically have to skip over most of it or this review is gonna get real dull real fast. So why not focus on the subplot? It's far more interesting to talk about than the actual main story of the movie. But we do have to get back to that main story at some point. Quasimodo and Madeline walk around Paris torturing metaphors. I mean, doing quirky things together, like eating a deflated but still delicious souffle and smelling a weed which doesn't look like much but smells amazing, and visit a tower where you can't see Paris at all, but you can hear its beauty if you close your eyes. Do you get it yet? You need to look past what your eyes can see in order to see the real beauty of the world. Do you get that? Because we're being really, really subtle.
She's even more beautiful on the inside.
Oh gods, I can't sit through any more of this. The next day, Madeline is attempting to flex some of her newfound confidence, but Sarouche has none of it.
I mean to have that bell.
I want nothing more to do with your thefts.
Oh, really? And how will you survive out there, On your looks?
Quasimodo sees something you don't.
Oh, does he? Well, what if he were to have an unfortunate accident? If I have to go up there with my men and do it the hard way, the Hunchback may get hurt.
Okay. I seriously don't understand your plan here at all, dude. You say that you need Madeline to get in Quasimodo's good graces because you need to know where La Fidèle is, which doesn't make sense for reasons I've already explained. And now you say you need her in Quasimodo's good graces because she needs to draw out Quasimodo from the tower long enough for you to get up there and steal the bell. Okay, well, that plan is sort of predicated on the assumption that Quasimodo is the only permanent resident in Notre Dame Cathedral, which is quite clearly not the case. But even if we assume that Quasimodo is the only obstacle you are likely to encounter, ridiculous, but okay, we'll roll with that. Well, he's clearly leaving the tower for long periods of time anyway, so why not just do it then? And you threaten her into going along with this by telling her that you'll kill Quasimodo if she doesn't get him out of the way. Well, if you have no problem with killing Quasimodo, why don't you just go up there and kill him? You know? Just kill him and then steal the bell? Or were you bluffing and you, for some reason, really don't want to hurt the guy? Well, that's kind of a weird line to draw in the sand, given that you seem to have no qualms about lying, stealing from a church, robbing civilians blind, psychologically abusing young women into doing your bidding, oh, and kidnapping children, which you also don't hesitate to do when it suits your purposes. And by the way, if you're trying to lie low until you have an opportunity to steal the bell, maybe instruct your minions not to steal from literally everyone who attends your circus, thus guaranteeing that any law enforcement with half a working brain cell is going to come poking around your operation, which is exactly what happens. This guy is seriously the worst direct-to-video Disney sequel villain I have seen thus far. Morgana was a lazy rehash, but at least she was competent. Forte was just weird, but at least his goals and desires were made clear. Mushu at least had comprehensible motivations and a plan that made some kind of sense. Lightning at least had some skill at manipulating those around him. Jafar was at least entertaining. Radcliffe at least knew how to use Pocahontas' hippie entitlement against her. And Zira, well, goddamn. But you, Sarouche, you've got nothing. There is not one aspect of anything you are doing that holds up to even the most cursory examination. You are a moron. Phoebus comes to confront Sarouche about the robberies, but Sarouche pins it on Madeline to distract Phoebus so he can sneak into the cathedral and swipe La Fidèle. Now, here's the million-dollar question. How is this motherfucker gonna steal a giant cast iron bell full of giant precious stones, which has got to weigh at least as much as your average mid-sized sedan?
Obscuro tintinavulum, mirable visu, ecce hoc facto.
That's right, he actually uses fucking magic to make it vanish into thin air. Quasimodo finds out about Madeline and kicks her to the curb, but Zephyr ends up getting himself caught by Sarouche as the latter makes an escape through the catacombs, and Madeline offers the group a tip-off as to what Sarouche might be up to.
Sarouche has made a living from illusion, but I can outthink him. It's the same as the disappearing elephant. There was always a tunnel under the stage. He's taken the bell underground.
Oh, go fuck yourself. You're seriously gonna try to tell me that that was all smoke and mirrors? That everything Sarouche has done has just been garden variety magic tricks. Asking me to suspend my disbelief is one thing. I will happily suspend my disbelief, especially because, like, you know, it's animation, you know, there's a degree of separation from reality, and I can accept a lot, okay? I really can. But you expect me to go along with the notion that Sarouche somehow made that bell disappear down a tunnel into the catacombs from the top of the Cathedral of Notre Dame. Bullshit. You know what? I'd have actually been less pissed off if you had just said it was somehow actual magic, because at least actual magic has been established within the world of the Hunchback of Notre Dame because of the gargoyles. And even if we somehow accept that such a tunnel is even faintly possible, which, to be clear, it is not, but even so, if this is all just a bunch of stage magic, what is the point of trying to make it look like real magic when nobody is around except you and your flunkies who are in on how the trick works? And if you somehow knew of a secret tunnel leading from the top of the cathedral down to the goddamn sewers, why in the hell did you need Madeline to go and scout things out? You're telling me that you knew enough of the inner workings of the cathedral to devise and plan out an entire escape route, but not enough to know where one of the fucking bells are? Fuck you. Oh, please just let me get through this. Okay. They manage to cut off Sarouche's escape, but he threatens to hurt Zephyr if they don't let him pass, so they do. So yeah, that's the entire purpose of having Zephyr be in this movie, just to be used as a prop for the climax. Fantastic. I'm glad we gave him all that screen time. Madeline convinces Quasimodo to trust her again, and they work together to rescue Zephyr. Yeah, I didn't really dwell on it much, but walking the tightrope has basically been the thing that is used as a metaphor for Madeline's confidence. If she can successfully walk the tightrope, it means she's achieved self-actualization. I've seen worse metaphors, but I didn't want to waste too much of your time pointing it out until just this moment. It's easy enough to summarize it all at once. Sarouche is arrested, La Fidèle is recovered, Quasi and Madeline are in love, and everyone is happy. The end. Oy vey. Okay. So, do y'all remember when I said this? You know what? I think that for the next Disney Direct DVD review, we're gonna have to pull ourselves up out of the realm of mediocrity and focus on one of the truly terrible ones. Yeah, so when I said that, I had not actually seen this movie yet. I was going entirely by hearsay, and the hearsay said that this is one of the worst direct-to-video Disney sequels ever made. And I'm sorry, but it's just not. It's not good, of course, it's actually mostly just annoying and boring as all hell, but it's nowhere near as bad as, say, The Enchanted Christmas or Mulan 2. Mainly this movie just suffers in comparison to the original, and in that regard, yeah, it's obviously a letdown. The music is nowhere near as good, but if your expectations are Alan Menken's best work, then of course you're going to be disappointed. The music definitely gets worse and worse with every passing song, but in general, it's pretty above average as far as direct-to-video Disney sequels go. The animation is also pretty good. Quasimodo doesn't move quite right, but other than that, everything basically looks fine. The main problem, as always, is the story. The big issue is that the movie doesn't seem to know who the main character is. So much of the screen time is devoted to Quasimodo, but the actual events of the narrative are based around Madeline. She's the one who has a direct personal conflict with the villain, not Quasimodo. She's the one who has an actual character arc, not Quasimodo. She's the one who has to achieve self-actualization to resolve the central conflict, not Quasimodo. Yeah, Quasimodo was looking for love, but that's small potatoes next to Madeline trying to overcome years of abuse and servitude. The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2 probably would have been a lot more interesting if it had just made Madeline the center of attention and allowed itself more time to explore and develop her character. This is another excellent example of a mediocre movie with untapped potential. There are good ideas in this thing, but they're held back by the movie feeling shackled to a certain premise and character base. This movie would have been much better served by being allowed to be its own thing. As it is, the movie doesn't really seem to know who it's for or what it wants to be. And in that regard, it's actually quite similar to its predecessor, at least on a deep conceptual level. The Hunchback of Notre Dame gets pulled in two directions by trying to maintain two totally different tones. And The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2 gets pulled in two directions by trying to maintain two totally different main storylines. The end result is a movie that might be interesting as a case study for a film student, but for anyone else, is just a waste of your time. This movie is, in a word, worthless. And I gotta say, I'm feeling kind of bad here. I feel like everyone was expecting a complete and total evisceration here, but all I really ultimately did was just stand back and calmly watch as the movie nonchalantly walked off a cliff. I just can't seem to muster up any real, long-lasting hatred for this thing. I mean, yeah, it's irritating, but I'll take irritating over intellectually offensive. Aside from one botched subplot, this movie is just too inconsequential to be worth hating. The movie is bad, yeah, but it's not terrible. No, 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 no. If you want terrible, I've got terrible. Until then, Code Monkeys, I will see you later. Popular opinion tells us that this is one of the most brain-scrapingly awful the thing. It's what my frickin' series is named after. Get the phrase right, please. Please join me as we shine heaven's light on the Hunchback. Yep. The festival this time around concerns Le Jour d'Amour. I can't say French. I don't know if you can hear that squeaking noise in the background. That's Finn chewing on his toy, but honestly, he gets kind of unmanageable if he doesn't have a toy to play with, so we're just gonna roll with it. I mean, he's gotta be using Meal Ragic? The movie sets up that beat where Phoebus is prejudicially distrustful. That's a mouthful.
He says he wants to be in it.
Marvel, do you want to be in a video? He say yes. Come here, Marvel. Come here. You want to be in the video? Hello. Look at this boy. Look at my little man. Marvel, oh, are you camera shy all of a sudden? You're looking away. Huh? Yeah. Do you just want to be in it for a second? Would you like to get down? Marvel want to get down? Huh? What do you think? What do you think? I love you. I love you. You with your man. I love with your man. Oh yeah, that's his I want to get down sound. Now, you may be wondering why I'm spending this much time on a subplot, and the answer is very simple.
What is it?
Well, I'll tell you. Mushu had at least comprehensible... Thank you, phone. I should have silenced that. I'm gonna go ahead and silence that. Radcliffe at least knew how to use Pocahontas' hippie cunt tied to bed.